We're joined now by New York Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller. John, I want to start with you with when there's an attack like this, what's the immediate response of the NYPD?
The immediate response is to very quickly leverage our foreign posts. We have a dozen detectives posted overseas, get to the people either where the attack is or in the region. They contact their partners. What we want to know is, what did the bad guys do? What was their plan? How did they execute? What was the target set? And then immediately start to apply protection against the like target sets or other vulnerable locations in New York. The idea is, John, in the first hours of these things, you never know whether this is a Europe-based attack or the Mumbai attacks in India or the Paris attacks, whether this is part of a global set of actions or whether it's isolated there. So we usually go into an immediate response, leveraging the 1,500 people in counterterrorism and any other assets of the NYPD required.
So the first thing is to make sure there's not a connection. Something might be ongoing in New York. And then is there a period where you're learning, you're getting a sense of what the new techniques and tactics are of these terrorists?
Well, it's a three-part process. First, there's the immediate response, and that happens automatically. It's muscle memory at this point. We launched this last one at 4 o'clock in the morning, and by the rush hour, we had the entire city covered at key nodes. The second piece is looking for that New York connection. Is there a U.S. nexus? Is there a New York person involved? Is there a one-off from a person who was involved in Europe who has a New York connection? And to drill down to make sure that we don't have a thread that needs to be chased here. And the third piece is actually going there after the attack. We've been to the Bardo Museum in Tunisia after the attack, the Lindt Chocolate Store in Sydney with our great partners in the Australian Federal Police and New South Wales Police. I personally led a team to Paris after the Charlie Hebdo attacks, and we study with the local authorities the attack and the response to see what we can bring back home to sharpen and hone our response, whether it's intelligence collection or the actual response to the incident.
One of the things I keep reading about is how adaptable ISIS is. Is that something you've noticed in these investigations that you've done? Have they changed their techniques once law enforcement catches up to them?
Well, ISIS is a growing organization, and it is a learning organization. And to counter them, you have to at least be a learning organization. So what we've seen over the arc of time, John, is ISIL operated on the idea that it would inspire attacks through very clever use and leveraging of social media. Then we saw a second stage where they enabled attacks, meaning not just putting out films meant to inspire attackers, but actually making direct contact with individuals here on U.S. soil over social media and telling them what to attack and when, and giving them advice. So that's inspired, then enabled. So you see inspired probably in San Bernardino. You saw enabled in the cases we had here in New York in June, which through good intelligence we interdicted with arrests. But what you're seeing in Brussels and Paris, and the thing that we have to be very watchful is that third stage, which is directed. And that's teams under the command and control of ISIL sent from Syria to Western Europe.
Let me ask you, Commissioner Bratton responded to something that Senator Ted Cruz said this week when he suggested that we needed to patrol and secure Muslim communities before they become radicalized. The commissioner's response was very strong against that. Why so strong?
Well, I talked to the commissioner about this quite a bit, and I think patrol and secure was a subtext for occupy and intimidate. I think if you listen to what he said and how he said it, listen, we're the proudest country on the planet, and that's because we have been a leader in freedom and human rights and everything else. I think in our history, if there are moments of shame, it would be Japanese internment, the Red Scare and McCarthyism, torture after 9/11. These are things that on reflection through history, the American people have rejected. And each one of those is driven by fear. And I think when you have people campaigning through fear and using that as leverage, and then giving advice to the police to be the cudgel of that fear, that's not the direction American policing should be taking in a democracy. And I think that's what the commissioner was saying in today's op-ed in the New York Daily News.
We have about 30 seconds. Does this present any does this affect the relationship with the police and the Muslim community at all? I mean, these kinds of comments, or is this just what happens in a presidential campaign?
Well, I think you've got a very interesting conversation going on here, and in the great law of unintended consequences, I think what Ted Cruz has done has caused police in America, particularly in New York, to have a voice that reassures the community as to what their role really is, which is to protect and serve.